Hey, there we go. It's working. Awesome. Hello. Hello, everybody. I'm Amanda Call. This is my channel. This is my comic page of my comic. This is Age of Night, Chapter 30, page 7. We've worked on this for 2 streams where we got all of this nice and penciled. I didn't quite finish the pencils on this top panel here last time, so I did the last little bit of that off stream. So now all of the pencils are done, which means we get to move on to lettering. I letter direct on my boards, those of you who do not already know this. So we're going to do some fun hand lettering. We're digging out the old triangle and the Ames lettering guide. Oh, and there goes my eraser pencil flinging itself to the floor. And all right, I've got my thumbnails just out of frame because, as you can see, I plot out where my speech balloons are going to go at the thumbnailing stage to make sure that I leave enough space for them and that the speech balloons actually work with the flow of the page instead of working against it or just kind of being thrown about randomly. So I have that, my plan of action. I have my script over here so that I know what the heck I'm writing. And we're going to begin. So if you don't, hey, Hungry, thanks so much for joining me. If you haven't seen me use the Ames lettering guide before, or it's been a little while and you're interested, I'm just going to really quickly go over it. I use the triangle in order to make sure that the lines stay perpendicular. So this side is lined up with the edge of my panels, and this is going to float back and forth along the long edge here, so I have it nice 90 degrees with relative to everything else on the page, which may not be perfect, but at least they're all in concert with each other. All of these holes up here on the Ames lettering guide, I don't know what they're for. I only ever use the bottom row, and that's what we're going to be using. So I get this lined up more or less where I want it to be. I start at the top hole, go down to the next one, and if you look closely, you can see that there are these 3 holes in a row, but there's a line between these 2, like connecting these 2. That's because that one is like a half-ish, like 2/3-ish way if you're doing upper and lowercase. That's your guideline for your lowercase. We are doing all uppercase because that's how I letter, so we're just going to skip it. So now you have the line that your letters will be on and the spaces above and below that. This particular word balloon is all of one word. So that's all we need is just the one line. It is just the word. Uh, bleh, It's just the word well, question mark, question. I know, isn't it clever? And here's the other really fun part about it is that I have it set right now to the size that I like to make my letters at, which is a 4, but you change the size of the lines that it makes by just rotating it. So you could have the lines are going to be further apart when you rotate it to a higher number. I just rotated it to 7 there, and you can see that these would now be, I'll very quickly just show you and then erase it in this great big space here. So now you'd have letters that are this big, which I occasionally do if I need to make something really big. Isn't that so clever? It's so cool. I don't need that there though, so we're going to erase it, but that was just a fun little demonstration. And you can also rotate it the other way and make it itsy bitsy, of course, but I don't need my letters to be that itsy bitsy. So we're going back to 4, which is where I like to keep it. And then when I do all 3 lines, then we just move down and we get that last line to line up with that last hole there, and we can continue and keep making more lines. I don't know if we're going to need all of those for this one, but that's what we're going to start with. Okay. This was kind of, I spaced this out kind of goofy. Oh, well. All right, this is why I do this in pencil, because as I go along, I'm trying to keep everything more or less like centered. I do a pretty decent job of this, just kind of like eyeballing it as I go, because I have hand lettered like 800-ish pages of Age of Night at this point. So I have a lot of practice and a pretty good sense of when I'm at like how much space I can fit on a particular line and keep everything nice and centered and making that nice little smaller at the top, bigger in the middle, smaller at the bottom kind of shape. But that's why I do everything in pencil first, so that as I go along, if I go, oh, that's not quite going to work, I can scoot it over and just like plot everything out before I commit it all to ink. Mm. Amanda, did you try to put too many words in this panel? Maybe. I might have. I might have tried to put a few too many words in this panel. Might be a problem I'm running into there. And we're going to try not to have our speech bubbles actually sitting on top of and cutting into characters' heads, but you know what? Sometimes things happen. We're going to try to avoid it. Yeah, I don't need to do that. We're going to do this. Okay, forget how to spell there for a minute. And also, I did decide to start with lettering on this page because there's some, but there's not like an excessive amount. There's, you know, a lot of like smaller speech balloons on this page, so it shouldn't take us too terribly long to get through this. And again, we have word balloon that's just one word, and it's a question. Lots of one-word questions. Oh, there's more sentence there. And then Drake pipes up from the ground. What? I'm part of this conversation too. Down here. All right. So that is all of the letters that need to be on this page. We have them all penciled in where they belong. So I have a basic idea of everything being plotted out here. So now we're going to go ahead and commit these to ink. I'm going to be using the Speedball Super Black and my school nib in my extremely gross looking wooden holder. I would replace it, but it's like it's actually really nice and comfortable and worn in this way. It just looks gross. It's just like petrified ink. It's fine. It's fine. And then I go into my medieval monk mode and start hand lettering. I'm gonna scooch this a little bit just because, right? It works so well. I just needed to scooch my camera a little bit because it was like directly in the way of my face, and I really need to be like facing this comfortably so I don't screw up. And you'll notice as I'm going through and doing these letters that I'm not writing as you would normally, where you're just kind of like dragging your hand along through the letters, where most people's like handwriting is not fully print, not fully cursive. There's a little bit of like dragging between your letters and making little extra loops where you're not fully picking your pen up. That's absolutely not how you hand letter. Every stroke you pick your pen up at the end of, so each letter is broken down into a bunch of different strokes to keep them all as clean as possible. I'm not actually like as disciplined as some people. I will actually like make some of my strokes a little bit more continuous than I'm supposed to, technically, compared to like how I learned it, but mostly I do it the way I'm supposed to. Hey, Jodent. I'm doing all right. How are you? Good to hear. I also try to be like much more conscientious about cleaning off my pen nib in between every like couple of word balloons worth of text. Because unlike if I kind of like have things go maybe not entirely the way that I want them to when I'm like inking something with a pen or even with a brush, and it's like, oh, that stroke didn't exactly go where I want, but that's okay. I can like roll with it and make it just adjust my drawing. These are letters. There's one way they're supposed to look. I don't I can't really just like roll with screwing them up. It's just like, oh no, now I have to coat this section of my page in whiteout and have to deal with working over that. It's not fun. Yeah. Mm. Piece of fiber from the paper is caught in my pen and just made a big drag of ink around the curve of that S. That's annoying. And Hungry says, ironic, a mess on the word mess. This is a school nib, is what this is called. It's a little bit different than the G. Let me grab the G and I can give you a side-by-side comparison real quick. So this one's the G. It's a little bit As you can see, it's a little bit like longer. The G is the one with the blue handle here. And the G is a lot more flexible. The school nib is super duper stiff, which is actually really good because then for lettering, because it gives me a very consistent line weight. If I tried to letter with the school nib, it would be very tricky to maintain that like really consistent line weight, whereas this one doesn't flex very much. Yeah, I gotta push really hard to get it to flex. So you get a nice consistent even line. Um, and yeah, it doesn't. You can see it's a little bit different shaped. So this one I pretty much only use for lettering, and it works really well for it. I really like that. I've used it for quite some time. Yeah, for sure. You can find school nibs easily on jet pens as well. All right. Last one. All right. So all the letters are inked. I'm gonna clean this pen off real quick and cap my ink before I accidentally knock it over. I may be opening it again pretty soon, but I just don't like leaving an open bottle of ink around my desk when I don't need to. Okay. So at this point, now we have the letters. We can go in and put the balloon parts around them. The balloons or the bubbles or whatever you want to call them. So for this, I'm primarily going to be using my 45 or what have you. What is it? I know somebody corrected me and said it wasn't. It's an isometric ellipse, so it's not 45. It's whatever the isometric is. Somebody was like, "It's not actually 45 degrees." And I'm like, "Okay, I believe you. I just know this is the one I use all the time." I will say out of all of the math I ever did, I was the best at geometry, but I wasn't actually great at any of it, so all right, so we're gonna go through and start trying to put appropriately sized little balloons around our different letters. There are places where this is not gonna really work, and we're gonna have to kind of improvise, but we'll start with this guy. I usually just freehand in the tails, although sometimes I'll use a tool to ink the tails. I'm currently back to using a felt tip pen for doing these because my tech pens and I are not on speaking terms right now. All right. This is a little bit of a longer tail, so I'm going to use one of my French curves to make sure that I get that not all wonky. Let's go. Join canned. Thanks for joining me. Something bigger. Okay. That looks like it'll fit. So we'll do that. These are all like, this is continuation of the same sentence and they're pretty close to each other. So the balloons are going to overlap a little bit. Do. We need the big ellipse. Oh, no, that's going to be too close to that S. It's going to look silly. All right. I'm going to actually do part of this scooched a little bit this way. And then the other part scooched a little bit this way because I do have this balloon and the tail kind of breaking this ellipse up a little bit. So I can kind of cheat it a little bit to get it to do more of what I want it to do. And as I'm going back up to the top of the page and working on these speech bubbles, getting them drawn around the lettering, I'm trying to be very careful of the bottom of the page where those letters are still pretty darn wet and not run into them and smudge them all over the place. India ink dries fairly quickly, but sometimes it stays wet longer than you expect, especially in the summertime when everything is humid. Oh, why did I do that? Silly. All right, we're going to have to kind of cobble this one together a little bit. Actually, I'm going to put the tail on the other side because otherwise I feel like it's curling too much just back in onto this image instead of leading you this way. So we're going to, because now we're going from Wen's face, we're going back up and around. Ha ha ha. All right, and this is going to be more of a hot dog shaped balloon. So I'm going to, since if I actually did if I did an ellipse, like a regular ellipse, isometric ellipse that fit the like length of this, it would be like super tall for it only being these like 3 lines and it would be sitting on top of his head, and I don't wanna do that. So we're gonna make kind of a hot dog shaped ellipse, which some people have very strong feelings about. I don't care that much if that's the thing that fits the letters on the panel. Some people are like really haters of the long hot dog. Hello. Hey Spud. Thanks so much for joining me. All right. Same kind of thing. Let me see if I like it better on the other side. I don't, just because it's not that far. It's not that far over, so it looks goofy over there. We're gonna do this. That's fine. All right, so there's one end of the ellipse, and we're stopping at that little halfway mark on the ellipse because that's where it is no longer, that's where it starts to curve back up. So if we go past that, then it's starting to not be like the nice rounded end anymore. It's starting to close back in on itself. So we don't want to do that yet because this, I need my big long open curve ellipse. Gonna get that other side there. There we go. And Spud says, I love how you draw cats and their body language. Yes, that is a sassy little guy right there. Thank you. It definitely helps that I have had cats my whole life. I think I had all of like a year when I was in college and living in the dorms that I was not living with a cat. Every other moment of my life, I've lived with a cat, at least one. Which reminds me, today I came home from work. The door to my house was not like, there's like the outside door, and then there's like a mud room, and then there's the inside door. And so the outside door was closed, but I come into the mud room and the inside door was like cracked open a couple of inches, like one of the kids hadn't closed it all the way. And I just happened to look down and my one of my cats, her little face was just like right in the crack staring out at me, just like, oh, oh, could I maybe escape? It's like, no, get back in there, you dummy. This being the same cat that we lost like right after we adopted her and thought for sure she had like frozen to death or been eaten by a coyote or something, and by some miracle survived that ordeal. Like went missing for 3 weeks right after we adopted her. And I'm like, "Why would you wanna go back out there? Like, you know that it's not pleasant out there." Alright, we're We're doing another hot dog type balloon here. Was it this one or was it it was this one? Okay. This is why I do each like why I pencil and then ink each balloon instead of penciling them all and then going back and inking them all because I don't remember which ellipse I used. I barely remember between the time it takes me to pencil them and then grab my pen. If I tried to do the whole page, I would never. I'd be spending forever just trying to find the right ellipse. Yeah, no, Joe, it was wild. It was so we had adopted them on Valentine's Day, and in Maine, February is the absolute coldest month. We always end up with like a negative teens ambient temperature cold snap at some point in February. And we had just adopted her and her mom and had them for like a couple of days and she got out. And because we had only adopted them a few days prior, she didn't like trust us yet. She didn't realize that we were her people and there to take care of us, take care of her, and that this was her home. And so I spotted her outside and I tried to get her and she just like ran away. She was just like, oh my God, this person's trying to catch me. And yeah, we had that terrible cold snap. And I was just like, okay, this cat is clearly dead. We put out a live trap, we put out food, everything. And I was like, there's no way this cat is still alive. But I kept on putting out the live trap. And of course, I like told my neighbors and I notified our animal control officer and all the nearby shelters. But I mean, we live in the middle of nowhere. So it was not likely that anyone was going to pick her up. Cause like even my neighbors are like half a mile from me. Like I did not figure she was going to go far. I was pretty sure she was just going to freeze or get eaten by a fox or something or a coyote or what have you. And then like after she was missing for over 2 weeks and I kept checking the live trap and everything, but I didn't have a whole lot of faith we were going to catch her. And then after she was missing for like 2 weeks, my kids spotted her outside and the dog had chased her up into a tree, like right next to our house. She had not gone anywhere. She must have been just hiding like under like the sheds and outbuildings and stuff around like my house and my mother-in-law's house right next door. Um and yeah, so she was in a tree. We tried to get her out of the tree, which was a terrifying and harrowing ordeal, and she escaped us trying to get her out of the tree. She did get down out of the tree, but didn't catch her at that point. She still escaped us. But at least then I saw which building she ran under, and I was like, "Okay, I'll put the live trap there, like, closer to that." Put the live trap back out there, and then it was, like, still several more days of, like, checking the live trap every day, and she wasn't out there, and she wasn't out there, and then one, like, really rainy, cold, nasty day, I went and checked it, and we had caught her. I was just like, "How are you still alive?" Just truly ridiculous, improbable stuff. She looked messy and she had lost a fair amount of weight and was pretty scrawny. But when I took her to the vet that same day, just like, oh my God, my cat went missing for 3 weeks and now I have her back and I need you to check her out and make sure she's okay. And they were like, oh my gosh, yes, take her right. We'll take her right in. And they gave her like a dewormer, just like preventative because they're like, yeah, she was probably eating like mice and other rodents and stuff, so she might have some worms. So we're just gonna give her a little deworming medicine as a preventative. Um, but otherwise she was fine. She was fine. And she gained the weight back in no time and she was fine. She was totally fine. No idea how. She used dual oven gloves and a colander on your head. I probably should have. All right. We're gonna do just a little bit of the background, like nib inking here before we come to the end of our time. I will go through and erase all of these pencil lines, all of my little Ames lettering guidelines, and the penciled letters and the penciled word balloons and everything, but I'm not going to do it yet because even though these letters appear dry, they may appear dry, but if I go at them with an eraser, I will discover that they are not dry. I will not erase lettering guidelines unless it has been a couple of hours of letting them dry and cure. I have learned that lesson the hard way several times over. So we're going to let them do their thing for a while because I do not want to do that again. Because they may appear to be dry, but if you start like trying to rub an eraser over them, you will suddenly discover that, oh no, there's a pocket of like wet ink under one of these, and now you've just smeared it everywhere. It's just not a good time. So I personally always just let the lettering dry for like a few hours overnight if I can. So I'll probably erase those like tomorrow. I'm not in a rush to get this finished up and scanned, so it's fine. They can just kind of stay there for now. They're not going to be in my way. No, I do not erase the blue. Uh, it is You are correct. It is not non-photo blue. So when I scan it, it will show up on the scans, and then I take out the blue in Photoshop. So I can just like select the color out and get rid of it that way, which will leave just the black and the white. Because even like supposedly non-photo blue is still visible to like most modern scanners. But it is very difficult for my eyes to focus on. And a lot of non-photo blue also, like, I don't like inking over it because it has, like, a waxy consistency, and the ink doesn't like to stick to it. Whereas this layout blue, I've had waxy ones, and I don't use them anymore because 'cause they're kinda gross. But, like, the Staedtler, it's got a nice it's very soft. Like, it's a soft, not at all waxy, not even as, like, slick as graphite. It's I don't really know how else to describe it other than it is a very soft kind of finish that's I guess it would be like, it doesn't really smudge badly or anything, but it doesn't have, like, a lot of, like, texture to itself the way that a lot of other types of pencil do. And so it's really easy to ink over top of and not like it doesn't really repel the ink. It doesn't like you can just kind of have the ink coat right over it or sink right through it into the paper and it works pretty well. I feel like there's a good word to describe the texture of it, but I can't think of what it is. My brain is just like, no, no words for you. Having a meaningful look shared between these two characters. Okay. I don't wanna have to mess around with a lot more drafting tools, but I'm gonna have to. Marcos Gundam, how wonderful. I'd never seen this work live. Thanks so much. I'm glad you were able to make it. I hope you've been enjoying the stream. All right, the drafting tools are coming back because I got to do some inorganic curves and straight lines and things. All right, you're from Brazil. Cool. I always love it when I get someone from that is well, for one, that not someone that I like just know personally, but from somewhere else in the world. That's very cool. I love the internet. All right, this part is going to be black, so I'm just going to put a little X on there to remind me to go back in and fill it in with my brush later. All right, other side of this. Okay, hang on, don't get dizzy. Just turning this around real quick. All right. Back around the right way. That should really that's fine. That can just be black. That's fine. Just don't run your hand through it, Amanda. I can see it's so gooey. There's so much wet ink in that spot. Can see how let me try and see if I can get oh yeah, you can see the light reflect off it. Look at all that. It's so gooey. All right, we're in the last 10-ish minutes of the stream. So I'm going to do the YouTube things before I leave you all for the evening. Remind you, I'm Amanda Call. This here is my channel. I go live just about every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern and work on some artwork, usually comics. A lot of times it's this comic right here. This is Age of Night, which is my webcomic. You can read the whole thing online for free at ageofnight.com. That's ageofnight.com. And while you can read the whole thing for free there, if you would like to support me, there's different options for doing that. You can buy copies of the first 4 volumes of Age of Night. They're available on Amazon. They're available on Drive-Thru RPG, Drive-Thru Comics, and Drive-Thru Fiction. They're available from me if you spot me at a convention. Technically, your local bookstore can do, like, the thing where they order them from Amazon as, like, a retailer, and it's, like, a lower price or whatever. I know a lot of local bookstores don't wanna deal with that, though, so if your local bookstore doesn't wanna deal with that, it's fine, I understand. Okay, all of that is very wet, so we're gonna just move over here for a little bit while I finish up. But yeah, if you also you can support me on Patreon. Patrons always get their webcomic pages a week early. So that's a cool perk of supporting me on there. Depending on your tier, you can also get other cool little bonuses, sneak peeks of pages as they are in progress, other stuff I'm working on, free comics just for signing up. Plus, I really appreciate it and it helps me out a bunch. But if you like watching these videos of me working on art, you should definitely subscribe to the channel, do the thing where it gives you like notifications, because then if I happen to have to start late or have to skip a week or whatever, I usually try to post about that on the community page. So it's a good way to keep up with it. You can also keep up with me on a few other social media platforms. I'm on most of them to varying degrees of activity as either Amanda Call Art or Age of Night, spelled the same as the comic. These days, I'm mostly active on Instagram and Blue Sky. And what do I have going on coming up? I don't have any events this week or the following week. My next event is going to be July 5th. I will be at the Bangor Sidewalk Art Festival. A really cool outdoor art festival in Bangor, Maine. The Saturday right after 4th of July. It's going to be it's always a really good show. It's always a good time. Well worth checking out if you're within driving distance to Bangor. Get some of this ground texture here under Drake. Oh no, Doug Shoot is missing it. We're scumbling. Every day I'm scumbling. All right, I'm going to finish this little shadow under this guy, and then I think that's going to do it for me for this evening. We'll finish the rest of the background inking next time. We'll see how far we get, if we actually get close enough to call it next time, or if we're gonna have to do one more stream. We'll see how it goes. All right, but that's gonna do it for this evening. We started with this page fully penciled. We have it all lettered now, and we have started doing the nib inking on it. So thanks everybody for hanging out with me this evening. I will see you all next time. Bye.